She laughed the first time she misplaced her keys, shrugged it off when she forgot her neighbor's name, even joked, "I must be getting old." But deep down, something felt different. Not just forgetfulness, but patterns, moments that didn't feel like her. And that's the truth about dementia. It rarely arrives all at once. It begins with subtle signs, quiet changes that are easy to miss or easy to explain away. Many people don't realize what's happening until months, sometimes years have passed. By then, memories have faded, confidence has slipped, and the chance to act early has been lost. But it doesn't have to be that way. In this video, we're going to walk through 5 early signs of dementia that most people overlook. These are not the obvious ones. They're the small shifts in behavior, speech, and thought that whisper long before they shout. This isn't about fear, it's about awareness. Because when you recognize the signs early, you can take steps to slow them down, to protect the brain, to support your loved one, to prepare. Whether you're watching for yourself, a parent, a partner, or a friend, what you learn in the next few minutes could make all the difference. Let's begin. Sign number 1, repeating the same questions or stories without realizing it. We all forget things now and then. You ask someone, "What time was that appointment again?" Or tell the same funny story twice because it slipped your mind that you already shared it. But with early dementia, this kind of repetition becomes more frequent and more automatic. You might hear a loved one ask the same question within minutes, or they may tell the same story 3 or 4 times in the same afternoon without any awareness they've already said it. At first, it might seem harmless. You smile politely. You answer again. You think they're just tired, distracted, maybe didn't hear me the first time. But when this pattern happens regularly, especially with recent events, it can be an early sign that short-term memory is struggling. Why? Because dementia often begins in the part of the brain that handles new information. So the person can still remember old memories clearly, childhood stories, places they lived, people from years ago. But what they had for breakfast? Whether they already asked you about tomorrow's lunch plans? That fades quickly. One daughter shared a story about her father. "He asked me 5 times in one morning if I had fed the dog. He looked surprised every time I answered." She thought it was just aging, but over time, the repetition spread to other areas. And that's when they sought help. It's important to know, repetition alone doesn't always mean dementia. Stress, fatigue, or hearing problems can play a role too. But when it becomes consistent and the person doesn't realize they're repeating, it may be a red flag. So if someone you love keeps asking the same thing over and over, try to observe gently. Don't correct them harshly. Just watch for patterns. Because sometimes the brain is trying to tell you something, even if the person doesn't know it yet. Let's move on to sign number 2. Sign number 2, difficulty finding the right words. We've all had that moment. You're in the middle of a sentence and suddenly forget a word. You pause, you say, "It's on the tip of my tongue." And after a second or two, it comes back. That's normal. But in the early stages of dementia, this difficulty becomes more than just an occasional pause. It becomes a pattern, a constant searching for words that used to come easily. People may struggle to name familiar objects. They might say, "that thing you cook with" instead of "stove," or "the round thing on your wrist" instead of "watch." Or they may stop mid-sentence, lose their train of thought, and never finish what they were trying to say. Some even replace forgotten words with unrelated ones, creating phrases that don't quite make sense. At first, it may sound like confusion or nerves, but over time it becomes clear. They're not just forgetting what to say, they're forgetting how to say it. One woman shared a story about her mother. She used to be so quick with words, always reading, always joking, but then she started saying things like "the food thing" instead of "refrigerator." And sometimes she just stopped talking, like she got stuck mid-thought. This kind of language change can be subtle. It doesn't happen all at once, and it's easy to explain away until you realize how often it's happening. It's also frustrating for the person experiencing it. They might grow quiet, embarrassed, or irritated when they can't find the words. And that emotional shift is often the first thing others notice. So if you or someone you love starts searching for simple words often or speaking in more vague, roundabout ways, don't panic, but don't ignore it either. Language is one of the brain's earliest messengers, and when it starts to stumble, it may be time to listen more closely. Let's move on to sign number 3. Sign number 3, losing track of time or place. We've all had moments where we forget what day it is. A long weekend ends and suddenly it feels like Monday is Sunday. You walk into a room and wonder, wait, why did I come in here? That's normal. But with early dementia, this disorientation becomes deeper. It's not just forgetting the time, it's losing the sense of time. A person may forget what month it is, not just the date. They might think it's morning when it's already evening, or confuse what year it is entirely. And sometimes they may not know where they are, or why they're there. One man, 76 years old, drove to a store he'd gone to for years, but when he got out of the car, he didn't recognize the parking lot. He stood still, heart racing, unsure of what direction to walk. He called his daughter and simply said, "I don't know where I am." Moments like these are terrifying, both for the person and their family, but they often begin as smaller clues. Someone might sit down in the middle of the day and ask, "Is it time for dinner yet?" Or they might get dressed for an event that isn't happening until next week. It's not just forgetfulness. It's a disconnect from reality's rhythm, how time flows, how days pass, how space connects. In early dementia, the brain's ability to orient itself weakens. It loses its internal clock, its map. This can lead to wandering, confusion, or even fear. And over time, the person may become more dependent on routines, because routines feel safe when the world no longer does. So if you notice someone frequently unsure about the day, the time, or their location, even in familiar places, it may be more than just aging. It may be their mind quietly calling for help. Let's move on to sign number 4. Sign number 4, changes in mood or personality that don't feel like them. We all have good days and bad days. We all feel irritable, anxious, or low from time to time, especially as we age and face life's many changes. But in early dementia, these emotional shifts often go deeper. They're not just mood swings. They're changes in who the person seems to be. Someone who was once calm and patient might become easily frustrated, snapping over small things. A social, outgoing person may suddenly withdraw, avoid conversations, or seem distant. Others might become unusually anxious, suspicious, or even afraid, especially in places they once felt comfortable. One woman described her husband like this: "He used to joke with the neighbors every morning. Then one day he stopped waving. He said they were watching him too closely. He looked the same, but something in him had changed." These shifts are not always dramatic. Sometimes they're quiet, a loss of interest in hobbies, a sudden lack of empathy, or unexpected bursts of sadness, anger, or even fear. What's happening? As dementia begins to affect areas of the brain that manage emotion and behavior, things that once felt stable begin to change. The brain struggles not just with memory, but with how it responds to the world emotionally. And often the person themselves doesn't understand why. They might say, "I just don't feel like myself anymore." This is one of the hardest signs for families to witness, because it's not about forgetting a name or place. It's about seeing someone you love act unlike themselves. If you notice these shifts in someone close to you, don't rush to judgment, and don't assume it's just old age. Take note, talk gently, seek support, because sometimes the first sign that something is wrong isn't in what they forget, but in how they feel. Let's move on to the final sign. Sign number 5, trouble making everyday decisions or subtle changes in judgment. We all second guess ourselves sometimes. Should I take an umbrella? Did I lock the front door? Should I answer that phone call? But early in dementia, these small decisions become noticeably harder. It's not just hesitation. It's confusion where there once was confidence. You may notice someone dressing inappropriately for the weather, wearing a winter coat on a warm day, or forgetting how to plan a simple meal, or paying a large bill twice and not realizing it. Sometimes it shows up in the way they handle money, giving too much tip at a restaurant, falling for phone scams, ordering unnecessary things online over and over again. One man's daughter shared, "My dad always handled the bills. But then I noticed late fees. He said the mail was slow, but I realized he'd stopped opening the envelopes." This kind of judgment decline is subtle. It doesn't feel like memory loss at first. It feels like poor choices, like a once careful person suddenly being careless. But what's really happening is this: the brain's ability to weigh options, consider outcomes, and make simple, safe choices is beginning to fade. And with it, a person's independence slowly erodes. This is one of the most important signs to catch early, because good judgment is what helps keep us safe, at home, on the road, in conversations, and in life. So if someone you love is struggling with simple planning, forgetting steps in familiar tasks, or showing a pattern of risky or strange decisions, it's time to pay attention. It's not foolishness. It's not laziness. It might be the brain, quietly slipping before anyone sees it. Let's take a moment now to reflect on what we've learned. So now you know, dementia doesn't always begin with forgetting names or getting lost. Sometimes it begins in the smallest ways. Let's look back at the 5 signs we explored today. Repeating questions or stories without realizing it, struggling to find simple words, losing track of time, day, or place, subtle but lasting changes in mood or personality, in trouble making everyday decisions, like what to wear, how to plan, or when to pay a bill. Each of these signs on their own might not mean much, but when they appear together or grow over time, they may be your first chance to act early, to support a loved one, to get help, to prepare. This video wasn't made to cause fear, it was made to offer awareness, because early awareness leads to better care, better outcomes, and sometimes more time. Now we'd love to hear from you. Have you ever seen one of these signs in someone you care about? What did you do? And how old are you? Where are you watching from today? Your comment could help someone else feel a little less alone. And if this video brought you clarity, comfort, or calm, please consider subscribing. We share thoughtful videos each week to help you understand aging, memory, and how to care gently for both yourself and others. Thank you for being here with us today. And until next time, be kind to your mind and patient with the people you love.